Hello, everyone, and welcome to Metadata and Archives, Intersections, Futures, and Career Insights. So my name is Eddie, and I'm the program director for the ASIS student chapter at SJSU. And if you like this event and want to see more events like this, there will be a link in the chat to our website. And there you can follow us on social media, on our channels, and you can subscribe to our newsletter as well. And there you can keep up with all the future events that are coming up that we're putting on. In fact, we have another great event coming up on October 15th called Getting Hired in Libraries, Voices from the Profession. So you don't want to miss that one. Today's event is going to be kind of like just a relaxed conversation. We'll be asking some questions to our wonderful guests who have joined us. And if at any time, as Chris said, you have questions for our guest, you're welcome to put them in the chat. And we'll hopefully get to as many as we can. So now I'd like to introduce our guests. We have Marina Morgan. She's head of technical services and senior metadata librarian at Rue Library, Florida Southern College. She leads cataloging, classification, and metadata services, serving as administrator for the library's ILS, Institutional Repository, and ETDs. Marina has overseen major projects, including the migration from Sierra to Folio and the creation of Find at Rue, an open source stacks navigation tool. She's also the 2025-2026 Vice President-elect of the Florida Library Association. Marina, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Jeffrey Zines. He's the college archivist at Florida Southern College in Lakeland. Previously, he was the archivist for University Archives at Florida International University in Miami. He has also worked as an archives student assistant and archives technician. He has a bachelor's in history from Florida Southern, a master's in library and information science from San Jose State University, and is currently pursuing a master's and PhD in history from Indiana University, Bloomington. Jeffrey, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into our first question here. Um, could you share what maybe first drew you to metadata and archives? So basically, how did you end up where you're at, your career path? How did you get to your current role? And I guess anybody can, either you can go first.
I guess I can start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's a great turnout, so I'm so happy to see everyone and so many of you interested in metadata and archives. So I have Bachelor of Arts in cataloging and or better said, it's library science and archives from University of Bucharest. So I started my career in Romania. And then I went to immigrated to Canada. And I said, of course, I can work as a librarian, but as in, it's the same in Canada and the United States, you need a master's to be a librarian. So I pursued a Master of Information Studies from the University of Toronto. I was really focused on being a reference librarian. I was keen I was taking all the classes until my very semester where I decided to take an internship. And I said, okay, let me do something different. And I chose an internship where I was cataloging a collection of books that were published in France and Belgium in the 17th and 18th century. So rare books and cataloging. And I guess I fell in love with cataloging. And I never looked back. That was, in 2009. And I was, after I finished my internship and I graduated, I was hired by the university where I had my internship. And as I said earlier, and I never looked back. And that was in 2009. Since then I've been working only in technical services and in academia. So for me it was I guess love at first sight. I learned cataloging on the job and I never looked back. So this is how it started for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jeffrey, how about you?
So I took kind of a roundabout way to archives and libraries. So I had a previous career. I was in the U.S. Air Force for a number of years, and when I got to the point where I decided I just wanted to do something different and go back to school, I had the intentions of being a high school history teacher. That's my history was the class that I loved the most, and read on the side and everything else. I was, even when I was in the service, I was always had my nose in the book or whatever. So, long story short, started going to Florida Southern College. It's where my wife had gone, and I had known one of the history professors there, so it had been recommended to me. Um, as I was going through there, and I was taking the education classes, and those were interesting and all that. And I went out to do my first field study at the local high school. And while I could do the job, it just didn't feel like the calling. It just was not for me. So as we're, kind of looking to see, where I could go, what can I do with this degree that I'm trying to get? I had a good conversation with my mentor advisor in the history department, and he suggested I come over and talk to the college archivist at the time and see, if they had like a student assistant position or open or volunteer to kind of get into that and see what that was all about. So. I knew the college had an archives. I had no clue what it did. I just kind of figured that they kept the records of the college, and I was kind of right, but they do more than that. So I talked to the college archivist, and she hired me on to work on some of the initial processing on a set of congressional papers for a gentleman who'd been in the U.S. House from Florida. Oh, from the early 1950s to the late 1970s, so through a very dynamic and turbulent time in American history. And I'm getting to read the letters that people wrote to him and what he wrote back to them and how he was communicating with some of the other members on his committee and whatnot. And in the meantime, I'm putting this stuff in order and working with it. And I'm like, well, people get paid to do this. So I just started having, conversations with the archivist about different career paths within the field. And as it turned out, when I was right after I graduated, the person who was in the technician, the staff position, left for another job. So I got hired in to be the archives technician, and right away just started, working on processing collections. I had great mentors, both the archivist I mentioned and then her successor were good technical archivists. Learned a bit, a lot about the profession, and got to go to a few conferences and some other training and whatnot. Again, coming into this like not really knowing anything about processing or metadata and all the other things that we work with. So I did that for 4 or 5 years there at Florida Southern, and then we moved down to South Florida, and I picked up and started doing the same thing again at a larger state university down there. In the meantime, I decided that I liked it enough that I wanted to get my master's. So I saw that San Jose State had the opportunity to get the library science with numerous archives classes, and it was online. So I got into it and took 9 hours of archives and records management in addition to the regular LIS classes, and absolutely loved it. Um, Graduated, and lo and behold, fate got smiled on me again, and there was an opening for a college archivist back at Florida Southern, my old alma mater, and where the whole process started for me. And so here I am. So a little over a year later, I'm in charge of the archives, and I'm getting to mentor a new technician and some students, and I love it. I joke it's one of the best jobs on campus. I get to see where all the know all the secrets and stuff and where all the bodies are buried, so to speak. So that's my little journey.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We already have a question from the chat, so I want to go to that. So somebody's asking that, well, they're curious to hear your perspective on the role of processing archivist and if that is considered an entry level position.
That kind of depends on the institution. So in academia, well, let me back up. In my mind, everybody that works in archives is an archivist. It doesn't matter what your job title is, you are an archivist. And I had the opportunity to go to Western Archives Institute back in 2017. And the two faculty members there that were in charge of the whole thing, that's what they kept hammering into us. If you're a lone arranger at a little community archives and you're doing this as a volunteer, you're an archivist. But to answer the question, in academia, which is basically where all of my experience is, you're either a college archivist or you're archives and special collections librarian, which is another path into the career field. You will see processing archivists, especially in large universities. I remember I talked to University of Michigan. If anybody there is here from Michigan, have a shout out. But they have a very large operation there, and they have processing archivists. So I don't know that it's necessarily entry level because it's most of the time you're on like a tenure track faculty position. But it just depends on the size of the institution and what some of their needs are. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. So it just sounds like it just depends on some things.
Yeah, it depends. That's the way it's been. So
Yeah. All right. So now we can get into how metadata and archives kind of connect and work together. So how do you guys see metadata work and archival practice intersecting? And do you see it in your daily work, or is it just here and there? Maybe Marina can go and
Yeah. So again, I'm gonna talk from our institution perspective because you can have metadata and archives intersect differently in other institutions, but the way it is set up at our institution is that I work in the library, in technical services, and Jeff is in the in archives. However, both of us we co-manage the digital repository. So this is where I see where metadata and archives intersect. On my end, I work with all the metadata application profiles, and there is I call it negotiation, with whether it's going to be with Jeffrey or in the past with his predecessor. It's just talking about different metadata fields and see how what would be the vision of or how we want our users to see the digital collections displayed. So there's where I see the interconnectivity between archives and metadata. So yeah, they're deeply interconnected. From my perspective, I see archival materials, requiring thoughtful description to ensure long-term discovery and access. Whereas on my end, the metadata standards, they provide a bridge between the unique archival content and the wider, I guess, information ecosystem. So yeah, in my daily work, I do see that intersection clearly more in digital collections and institutional repository. Um, Also in, I just mentioned institutional repository. I would think that maybe, sort of the archival principles of provenance also like intersect with metadata frameworks. Again, metadata, it's about making material searchable, accessible, and I guess, visible beyond the local context. So I guess this is where I see metadata and archives intersecting.
From my perspective, or from my side, I see the role as the archivist is providing the necessary context for the collections because a lot of times we don't have, if I just send Marina a collection and say, hey, I want to digitize this and figure out the metadata on your own, that doesn't work. We have to have, like she said, an open negotiation, a completely open dialogue, about what our goals of the collection are. We don't just digitize just to digitize. There has to be a solid archival reason why we would want to make a collection digital. We're getting more, as people are looking for more and more stuff online, that's what they want to see. So, we're kind of a little bit more liberal about it than we might have been in the past. But the other role, I think, of the archivist, not just providing that context about where this collection came from, why are we, how do we best describe it, how do we get people to see it, is also when I intake new collections and I know that there's going to be a potential digital component to it, is grab as much information from the donor as possible, especially if they're the creator.
Mhm.
Because I'll give you a good example. We have a collection a gentleman donated to us last fall. It's a lot of it's an archival hobby type thing. He was or archival architecture. He's a retired architect. He was a great big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright, and our campus is the largest collection of Frank Lloyd Wright buildings in the world. And he decided as he was going through his career, which started in about the mid 1950s, he would go around with his buddies, even while he was in college, and take pictures of Frank Lloyd Wright's buildings. As a lot of them was even when they were brand new, like the Guggenheim and Falling Water and some of those. So he has all these great beautiful color photographs. So I went back to him and I said, "Can you tell me when these were taken? What the dates are? What kind of camera you used? Everything that you can tell me about this picture." Because he's the creator, and that is so rare for us. So many collections are just we find them and we just have to, try to get as much information as possible. But so definitely archivists, if you're getting something from a donor and the donor is the creator or knows the creator, get as much as possible because one day that person is going to be gone and then you're not going to be able to get what you need. So like I said, just finding the best way to describe the collection and what works for the metadata standards and what how we want to represent the collection. So
Yeah, thank you. Marina, you mentioned the users and how they would want to see the records. Is that kind of where you start with the user in mind, or are they kind of like in the background in the back of your mind? Like, is that the goal? Like to show them how they want to see how they want to look at the
Yeah.
records, or
Yes and no, but
okay.
mostly yes. What I meant by that is that, we have, different kinds of digital collections, right? We have a collection of postcards, we have crate labels, we have, photographs. So what we see as professionals, of course, from my perspective, I would love to see all the data accessible, right? Who was the photographer, as Jeff mentioned, no very detailed description. But we also have to realize that maybe it may be nearly impossible to add all that data, right? So we kind of put ourselves into the user's perspective. What would they want to see, or what field will be useful for them to to access that particular collection. So that's where, it comes in place, that discussion that, the archivist and the metadata specialist has, what kind of fields do we want, how do we want to label those elements? What would be easier for the users to understand? Because, we speak metadata standards, our users don't. So we just want to make sure that, our digital collections are accessible.
yeah, we don't want to overwhelm them with data, and
Yeah.
each collection is different. Each audience is different because the people who are looking at citrus crate labels are most likely going to be different than those who are looking at Frank Lloyd Wright stuff, or so it just depends on know your audience, and who you're trying to reach. in your research base, who's going to be doing research in your collections. So,
Yeah, so just because you have a bunch of data about the creator, let's say, doesn't mean you're going to put it on there.
I
Is that
mean,
right?
right, yeah.
Or
yeah, so certain
okay.
systems, they do allow, I mean, you know what I would do? I would add as much data as possible, but not necessarily make that data visible. You know,
Okay.
we keep it for, our records just in case that data will be useful to us or
Mm.
researchers in the future, but certain systems are very flexible and you can hide some of those
Oh,
fields.
gotcha, gotcha. And I like how you said the future because we don't know what,
Mhm.
how maybe it'll be easier to do things in the future to look through all that stuff. So I
Mhm.
guess that's one reason to keep it, right?
Mhm.
Oh, and Jeffrey, you mentioned the getting stuff from the creator. Is that rare to be able to
Um,
that the donor is the creator and you can talk to them and get info from
it,
them, or is it?
yeah, it's about 50-50, at
Yeah.
least with my particular archive, because we have a lot of as we, in addition to Frank Lloyd Wright, we have a very large collection of we're citrus related stuff. We're the official archives for the Florida citrus industry. So we have a lot of people as they're getting out of the business and closing up groves or whatever the case may be. We're getting a lot of the business records and pictures and everything else from the actual people who are running. So because with a lot of these groves, it's a family business, so maybe you're getting it from the grandson or whatever, but he's been in the business for 30 or 40 years and his father was in the business and so on and so forth. So in a lot of cases we are. Same thing with we try to get stuff from like retiring faculty and whatever. So we're getting stuff directly from them. But we will get stuff secondhand also. Especially alumni is the biggest area for that because you'll have a lot of people who, the parents pass away and the parents were the alumni and the kids don't know what to do with the Letterman jacket or whatever. So,
Yeah.
we're getting that kind of stuff. And even with that, we try to get as much as possible. In the archives, we definitely want as much biographical information as possible. So when we're writing our finding aid and putting it in archive space, we have something to tell researchers, this is why we have this collection. This is who the person was that donated to us or created it and why it was important and why we're keeping it. So yeah, I would say it's about 50-50. It just depends on the type of
Mm.
collection we're getting.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we can move on to talking about technology, emerging challenges with technology. What new technology practices, such as linked data or AI tools, are reshaping how you approach your work? I don't know if either of you use any of that, but
I have, so I can speak briefly about AI. I was on sabbatical this summer, and I was really curious to see the ways in which AI can be used in um, improving our workflows. Seeing if AI can describe, for example, some of the um, I guess, images that we had. So I played around with some AI tools, but mainly I wanted to see how or whether AI can improve our workflows in technical services. And let me tell you, I was so excited at the beginning of the summer. I said, yes, I'll work on this project. And by the end, of the summer, the conclusion of my project, I realized how much AI has a impact on our environment.
mm,
So that was eye-opening.
yeah,
Also, AI is hallucinating, and giving it certain prompts either to give me a call number or to I uploaded an image and to use AI to translate, for example, a title page or not. I mean, in certain it works and it doesn't work. I would say we are far from relying heavily on AI. you still need someone to double check, whether that call number that AI provided is the correct one. I'll give you an example because both Jeff and I, we presented at a regional conference in August, on separate topics. But the example I gave, at that in that presentation was that I wanted to, have ChatGPT to give me a call number for a book. It was about painters in Taiwan. And ChatGPT gave me a call number for painters in China. And I challenged it. AI said, I wanted, a call number for painters in Taiwan. And they said, oh, yes, you're right. This is the correct call number. So this is to say that, don't rely only on that or the answer that AI is giving you. Also, I uploaded an image that was something written in Japanese. And I wanted, AI to translate because I really wanted to see what's on written. It turned out that I uploaded an image upside down, and ChatGPT said, "Oh, I don't know what that is." And it turns out ChatGPT, or I haven't tried with Claude or Gemini, but ChatGPT told me that if I want something translated, we need to be oriented the right way, otherwise, we'll not be able to read.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't read
Um,
backwards.
yes, yes. So, I have many, many, more examples, but
Yeah.
we don't have time. But yes, I did play around with ChatGPT mainly to see if we can improve our workflows. But then seeing how much
Mm,
you know impact it has on our environment, I was
mhm.
really upset about it.
Yes, yeah,
And
we can definitely talk about that. That's an important point. Sometimes could be left out because we look at the potential time savings and perhaps not the environmental cost. So,
yeah.
Jeffrey, do you have any? Are you working with anything?
Uh, a
Any
little bit,
AI?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with Marina. I'm just kind of experimenting with some stuff, but again, I have the same concerns about, whether the power and the water and everything that's using is really necessary. This summer, I played around with some of our collections to try to see if it could come up with the appropriate Library of Congress subject headings to describe our collections, and it's hit or miss. I mean, it hallucinates. It comes up with stuff, even if you ask it to tell me where did you get this from or whatever. How did you come up with this phrase or this word or whatever? And a lot of times it has to correct itself. So I started asking myself, was like, is this really a time saver? Because I have to go back and double check it on what it's doing. So
Mhm.
maybe years down the road, it might be to the point where it can do it as well as somebody who's been cataloging for years, but I don't
Yeah.
like. I mean, what it gave me is good enough for my purposes because we're just small archives, and I just want my collections to talk to each other and people to find relations between collections. But other than that, and I want people to find the information, but I don't really see it being I think it's the hype. It does what it produces doesn't equal the hype, I think is the best way to put it. So
Mhm.
from my perspective, at least, I know they've been doing some interesting stuff with reading, being able to pick out keywords and stuff from like old diaries from like the 1850s or something like that. They can just feed that into, uh, and instead of having somebody try to sit there and try to figure out what was actually written on the page, it can do it in a few seconds. But again, you still have to go back and check the work. So what are you really, gaining on?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of well, it's something we talk about human-centered AI. I know we talk about that at our university to use AI, but never take the human component out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there we go.
Like don't surrender here. everything to it kind of thing. And yeah, if you have to double check, how long is that gonna take, so are
Mhm.
you saving time using AI if you're gonna double check? So sounds like maybe down the line some years, but sounds like both of you were saying that it's not ready. It's not ready yet.
Yeah, not
I
quite.
can confidently say it's the AI, it's not ready. I added two links in the chat. One was the presentation I had in August, and the other one was another presentation about AI that I did at the International Conference on Dublin Core and Metadata Applications. So both links are there.
Mhm.
Jeff, do you want me to add the link to your presentation?
No, it's not really relevant
No?
to this. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm. Thank you, Marina. Yeah, those are great. And then when we do send out the recording to those who registered, we will put those links in there too, so they'll have them there. Okay. Thank you. That was great. Let's go. Let's see. Well, let's try to see if we could talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. Does that show up in metadata and archival practice?
Certainly in the archives, we'll put with some of our collections, we will put a basic generic statement or whatever. It says, some of the language in here might be outdated or
Mm-hmm.
offensive or whatever.
Mm.
A perfect example would be the congressional collection I mentioned because you're talking about um, people writing to their congressman about their opinions of the civil rights movement as it was happening, and there's some very harmful stuff in there, as you would imagine.
Yeah.
So we don't want to hide anything. We just want to make people aware that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And even stuff that our school has done, in the past that some of the minstrel shows and stuff like that in the 20s and 30s, that we wouldn't. It's there, but we're not going to put it on the front page or anything like that to make anybody. So and we're also a private school. I mean, so we have a little bit more leeway than I come
Oh,
from.
okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're in Florida, so I was at a state university, and there are a whole bunch of other restrictions that they're putting on what people are allowed to say there. But yeah, it's something we definitely have to be aware of in archives and just do the best we can.
Mm-hmm. How about in metadata, Marina? Is that an issue that comes up?
Um, we, I'm just gonna just, um, I'm just gonna say again, we are in the state of Florida and we have different laws here.
Mm,
But because we are a private college, it's a different take
yeah.
that we have. Definitely we are not trying to. I mean, we do have a diverse collection. We are not saying no to various requests that we have from various professors, and we try as much as we can to describe it and describe it accurately. And we've had some questions from students. For example, why would we have so and so book in our collections? And we
Mm-hmm.
tried as much as we could to respectfully say that we are having a diverse collection and we are not going to. I think censor is a very heavy word, but we are
Yeah.
trying as much as we can to have a varied and diverse collection.
Mm.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think we have another question from the chat here. It's asking, are there any FOSS programs that archivists use nowadays? That means free open source software. Are there any free open
Um,
source?
Free open source. I'm not entirely sure. We use Archive Space, which is certainly not free, but I'm sure there are other ones out there, but I just can't answer intelligently on that. Just because I've only ever used Archive Space in both institutions, so that's
Hmm.
really.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Another question is from the chat. Do you place a warning or caution about sensitive images or outdated, inappropriate language? I think we're kind of talking about that a little bit
Mhm.
already.
Yeah, we will on the archive collections
Mhm.
if we see something in there. And both at FIU and at Florida Southern, we've done the same thing. It's just it depends on the collection. We try to now to do it to every individual collection instead of just putting a blanket one at the top. We used to have one just on our homepage, just saying you may find collections that have outdated or sensitive
Okay,
language. But now we just do it by collection because it's number one, it
okay.
keeps us looking at the collections and also just gives, somebody may just bypass us. They might get to us, straight, from another source or something like that. So we want to make sure when they go straight to a collection that they're seeing it there instead of anywhere else. So,
Hmm. Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Another question from the chat. Do you ever receive pushback from other stakeholders about what you make accessible in the archives?
I have not. We're testing that this semester because we're working on a project of analyzing the artwork used in the citrus crate labels, kind of comparing them between Florida's approach and California's approach. And the student assistant who's been working on it has highlighted some stuff that could make some people uncomfortable. That was, images and depictions of people that was common in the 1920s and 1930s. We're just going to put out there and see what happens. And describe them as, these are, the way things were depicted at that time. And, not saying right or wrong, but it's if we were going to get pushback, we would probably get it from some of the citrus stuff, just because that's the nature of the industry. Other than that, not that I'm aware of that we've ever gotten anything.
Mm,
I don't know about Marina, if any of the images have.
Yeah, and again, like us, some institutions, they are, keeping questionable materials for historical purposes, but with a proper description. And yeah, Jeff, would you be okay with me sharing the link to our digital collections where we have the statement?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
yeah, that would be great. Do you ever have to go back? Talk about descriptions. Do you feel like sometimes you have to go back and change a description that has already been done, or you just
Um, a lot of that was done in the last several years by my predecessor. So it's just now, since that seed has been planted, that's not seed has been planted, but that process has been started. We just got to pick up where they left off. So,
Mhm.
but you always want to reevaluate collections just to make sure, that, we're not missing something or, as things evolve and language evolves, over the years, it's something we
Yeah,
want to keep an eye on. And,
yeah,
stuff that even, was okay, a few years ago may not be okay 10 years from now. So it's a constant process. You just have to keep,
Yeah, and it's I think this goes back to the, one of the first questions, this is the exact intersection between metadata and archives because Jeff and I, we are starting working on a or collaborate on a project, again, reevaluating what was I guess described or added into the in the archives because, we have a lot of aerial photos of our campus, but do we need 10 variations of the same, maybe it's a slight angle. Do we need 10,
mm,
so of those
yeah,
images in our collection? So yeah, I think it's a constant evaluation and I think it's very important to just go back and see, whether something needs to be changed or not. Yeah.
all right. Thank you so much for that. Let's see if I think we have some more questions coming in here from the chat. This one's for Jeffrey. As someone with a history background, how does that tie in with your MLIS degree, and what pathways would you suggest for those interested in history?
so basically. It ties in as I wanted to be an archivist. That's how I became, got into the field or whatever, as or the library field. The MLS is so I could become a professional archivist or be a college archivist in an academic level. Um, but you're not exact. You're with as a history major, you're not necessarily tied to just archives or to museums or public history or that kind of stuff. The one thing that the history degree gives you is the ability to see context and ask questions.
Mhm.
And that can be useful in any part of librarianship. I use it every day, I think, just because I'm dealing with historical collections on a daily
Yeah.
basis. Um, and having to have try to decide whether I want to take in a donation or and you have to decide how that's going to fit in my collection historically. The context, knowing, the history of my institution and how different, things play against each other. People, some of the people who made the history and, whatnot, why things are, like I said, constantly asking questions. Um, I, the history, the pathway, I guess, would be just through archives. I mean, that's where I ended up. I think that's where a lot of history majors end up that don't go into law or whatever else. As a lot of us are archivists. My predecessor was a history major. Her predecessor was a history major. So there's kind of a pattern here in our
Yeah.
archives. And my supervisor when I was down in South Florida, she was also a history major and art history. So. It's just that background, that ability to, and just I guess it also kind of gives you the love, or you already have the love of it. I mean, if you want to be a history major or whatever, and this is just a way to, apply it, in a way that's meaningful, for
Yeah.
society and whatnot. So we tie in with public history a lot. We have to do, or we should do, exhibits, whether they're physical exhibits in our building or in the library, or if we're doing digital stuff, which we're doing a lot more of now. And having kind of a history background helps with that too, just to understand how stories are told in an interesting and engaging way. So,
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. So, I have a bachelor's in history, so I guess I'm gonna become an archivist. I mentioned to Marina, I don't know if you were here, Jeffrey, when I said that I'm taking archives and manuscripts this semester. It's like an overview of archives. And they mention MPLP, more product, less process.
oh
Is that the classic the Green and
yeah.
Meisner article? Um, it's just I just find it really interesting because it always seems like because I interviewed an archivist that was one of the assignments that we had to do, and they talked about backlog. And then I was reading other interviews that my classmates did talk about backlog. It just seems like does every archive have a backlog? Is that just standard or what's going on there? And if so, is everybody applying the MPLP or should they be applying it? What do y'all think?
So answer to the first question is yes, we all have backlogs.
We do, even in
The
libraries. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, we just so much stuff is just sitting there waiting for us, and there's so much stuff waiting to be discovered. I am a huge proponent of MPLP. As I mentioned, I'd gone to Western Archives Institute in 2017. Well, Dennis Meisner was the faculty member that was our facilitator there. So we got to hear straight from him, what his how he how it was developed and how to apply it. And what he basically there was a lot of confusion over what he meant and what they didn't mean, and about whether it should be applied every single time or what the case may be. And I love it because it's got some flexibility. I mean, it's you. The common misconception was you process to a minimum standard each time. Well, it's each collection is going to be different, so that standard is going to be different for each collection. The end of the day, you just want to make the information available to your patrons. It doesn't do
Yeah.
anybody good if it's just sitting there, in your vault
Yeah. That's what
and
I say.
waiting to be processed, 5 years from now. You may have some really cool stuff in there, but so um, yeah, I was a big proponent of it. And I was supported in that when I was at FIU. now that I'm in the leadership position, it's something we've instituted here at my archives.
Hmm.
And we've gotten a lot more collections out in front of people. I mean, we can, and I can teach students how to process at a minimal level. Um, and that frees me up to do some of the, more strategic stuff that we're supposed to be doing as archivists. And myself and my technician, we can come back to those collections at a later date and put the fine touches on them and do a lot of the,
Hmm.
stuff. As long as we're teaching the students, take good notes. And if you see something that doesn't look right or you're not sure, come talk to us. But we need to get the information out there, and we need to, not be sitting on our collections. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very much.
What do you think, Marina? MPLP, yes or no?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yes, okay.
And it's as someone said, because I'm looking at the chat,
Uh-huh.
someone said, yes, everyone has a backlog. We do. In at the Rural Library, we receive a lot of donations. So at times I feel that, we do not have enough space in technical or services, to get all the donations. And then you have different projects. You have faculty members, retiring. So we go through that as well. Um, Interestingly, there was so just to give you a little bit of a background, Jeffrey, if I may, you talked about MPLP when you interviewed for your position, and we're all like, yes, yes,
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so you hear that, everybody? In an
yeah.
interview, mention MPLP.
Yeah, yeah, it does
And
help.
yeah, and also when I interviewed for my position almost 10 years ago, I mentioned an OCLC report where, they said that what do users want to see when they want to, access or to find a book. And it's very, very, simple as a title and a call number. But so yeah, to make it, easy, simple, accessible. But of course, us as professionals, well, we,
Well,
we want to add more and more.
yeah.
But yeah, with the backlog, I think it's something that it's MPLPs for the win.
You see somebody put in the chat, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." That's exactly, the attitude
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
MPLP. And I mean, I love it when I get a compliment on a collection, and because it's in new folders and the new, acid-free boxes and everything's perfect and all that. Well, yeah, that's great. But on the other hand, maybe some archivists, I think, are just they're embarrassed to have the old folders and stuff like that. But most of the researchers really don't care. They just want the information.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Th- So the problem, the backlogging is because what? There's just not enough staff to people to,
um,
right? Is that
yeah,
the main
thinking is one,
funding
and
it comes down to?
yeah, I'm being very methodical about processing collections by the book each time and trying to be perfect with it. And, it's just, there's not enough time in the day to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you have a huge staff, which none of us do
Nobody,
anymore
yeah.
because of budget cuts and stuff, it's just not feasible the way it was maybe
Yeah.
10 or 15 years ago.
Sometimes we do, Jeff, I hope it's okay I mentioned this, but in the past, we did have, San Jose State University interns. And this was, digital internships. So, um, we had that, opportunities for students to, to learn how to, either catalog or work with different systems. But going back to staffing, yes, sometimes I think it's because we are understaffed, but this is the reality of a lot of institutions.
Yeah.
But yeah, we sometimes do have interns who are, you know, interested in learning, cataloging or metadata or archives. And yeah,
Great.
just to put that plug in there, if
Yeah,
just keep an eye
we will.
on
Yeah.
future opportunities for internships at
Great. Yeah.
Florida Southern.
Yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much for that. Yeah. Um, so I mentioned it's probably expensive to run an archive, I imagine. Well, the building, the materials you use are, a folder is not like any folder, right? It has to be that, like the acid-free, right?
Yeah, acid-free, linden-free,
Lingen-free,
pH
yeah.
buffered,
So it's like 10 times what a normal folder would cost or something like that, right? So everything's one thing I was wondered, or when I was taking this class, the idea of insurance came up. Is is part of the when you determine the value of, do you determine the value of a collection, and is that to for insurance
um,
purposes or no?
if we get a large collection that is going to have some value, definite monetary value to it, certainly we would have a conversation with the finance manager or the vice president of finance on campus. But it's very specific part of archives is people who go can get certified to be like an appraiser or have
Yeah.
experience and training being an appraiser. I am not. I mean, I can tell you,
Uh-huh.
just from being around like the citrus crate labels, for example, I kind of have a rough idea what they're worth individually or originals and whatnot. But the archives is insured, under the college insurance policy, and we have, like I said, if we're going to take in something like if we still had like the old Cypress Gardens theme park collection to our name, that would certainly probably have its own insurance policy on it, in addition to what the college has. But from the conversations that I've had with finance, what they have covers what we have in our building. So,
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. So we almost out of time. We've got 5 more minutes. There's a few more questions from the chat, so I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but the next one's asking, often the professions are more up to date on trends than curricula. In your experience, what are essential and or emerging skill sets, proficiencies, software, hardware, data standards for anyone seeking to work in archives and metadata today? Okay, that was a lot. So some essential emerging skill sets. What do you think, Marina? Software,
Definitely.
hardware.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So definitely, technology, right? Because this is something, that we rely on, right?
Mhm.
Whether learning a software or a tool that it's being used. Um, I also wanted to mention that, as as a library professional, I do not know all the metadata standards, right? I am proficient in those that I am using at my
Mhm.
college. I used to teach metadata in Canada at Seneca College. But just as an advice to everyone who is here, just learn a standard or try, if you do like cataloging, try to job shadow someone, find a mentor, try to again connect with someone who is being in the profession, so that I know, I've been in your shoes as a student. Sometimes it's more theory than practice.
Mhm.
And my advice to everyone is try to, either, volunteer, work part-time, do a practicum or an internship. This is how I learned cataloging on the job. And it's something that I try to, pay it forward. As I mentioned, I worked with 5 SJSU students in the past. They were interning with me in technical services. And, the I guess the description of the internship was to, work with the institutional repository. I always had time. I was, putting aside, 15, 20 minutes of our, weekly meetings to answer questions. I said, do you want to learn Sierra? We used to, use Sierra. Now we have Folio. do you like to see how content DM looks like, or all these tools that we are using? So yeah, emerging, tools, I would say just try and connect with a lot of professionals and try and see, how these tools work. Because again, taking a class, it's a lot of theory, but you also need
Mhm.
practice.
Yeah, I think that was great. Thank you, Marina.
Yeah, I'd
Jeffrey,
follow up.
what do you
Yeah,
think?
I'll follow up on that and say that when you graduate from SJSU, the learning doesn't stop; it just begins. You Just in the time I've graduated from SJSU has been the emergence of the AI or large language models or whatever. That was not really, yeah, the people have been talking about it for years, but it was not, had not hit the public when I was still in graduate school. And here we are, a couple of years later, and we're talking about it. So, and using it. Um, I would say the best way is to, like Marina said, to network with other professionals, join Society of American Archivists, or, if you don't join them, join your local, regional, or state archives group. Society of Florida Archivists for us, and I know there's Southwest Archivists in California and everywhere else, because that's where a lot of the learning happens, is when you're networking with your colleagues, you're just talking to each other, over email or on a listserv, or you're going to your annual conference or whatever, and you're learning, your colleagues are presenting about some of the cool stuff that they're working on. And you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I should try that for my archives or whatever. It's like, a lot of people use like story maps, which Marina teaches, and other digital storytelling, stuff like that. Um, just by demonstrating that or having that conversation with people as a way to stay up to date with what's happening. And when you get into the position to be an archivist, or you're a cataloging librarian, or head of technical services like Marina, have interns, because
Mhm.
teaching also teaches you, teaching others teaches you. I also had two interns. I had one over the summer from Denver University, and I have one this fall from University of South Florida. And it gets me back into some of the, what's some of the emerging trends, what are we doing with AI, or what are we doing with,
Hmm.
you know, and I would also say definitely have some kind of familiarity with, computer or software, hardware, whether you're learning some kind of coding of any kind. Not that you're ever going to use it, but just so you can have an intelligent conversation with IT. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
really, I mean, things change so
Yeah.
quickly, but at least you should have some
Yeah.
background.
You in
Um,
any you're gonna have to talk to IT, right? And
yeah,
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
All
I
right.
added our emails in the chat if anyone is interested. Again, I just speak for myself. I'm extending the invitation for anyone who wants to get in touch with me, talk about, cataloging metadata. I'll be more than happy
Oh, thank
to
you so
help.
much, Marina. That's very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We really appreciate that. And oh, with that, it looks like our time is up here. I'm sure we could talk a lot longer with you guys. Um, but that's going to be it for us here today. I want to thank both Jeffrey and Marina for being with us. This was great. We learned a lot, I think. And thank you all for joining us today. And don't forget, if you want to rewatch it, you will get an email with a link to the recording. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed
yeah,
our conversation.
yeah. This was very enjoyable, and good luck to everybody. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you out there.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.